Incredible drama off Broadway last night. 22-point comeback. One of the greatest that we've ever seen in playoff history. It was fueled by the Brunson burner. He had 24 of his 38 in the second half in overtime, 17 of those coming in that 44-11 run to end the game. A little later in this hour, Jay is going to get to the touchscreen as only he can, and he's going to break down exactly how that matchup of Brunson versus Harden wound up dominating this game. And listen,
it's like a matador.
Here's the difficulty of this, okay? And Michael, you've been doing this longer than any of us, so I'll let you have the first crack at it. One of the reasons that it takes courage to be in professional sports is that you run the risk of always being remembered for your worst moments. And I'm not going to suggest that last night Kenny Atkinson is going to always be defined by that. But at least on this day, this game is as much about Kenny Atkinson blowing it as I can ever remember. His explanation is nonsensical. The fact that he's going to lose 2 timeouts anyway, and then explains afterwards, well, I want to make sure I get to the end of the game and I still have one. It actually, there's nothing that drives you crazier as a fan than when your coach makes an explanation that you know doesn't actually suit the circumstance. So what are the right things to say about that on a morning like this?
You know, one of the things coaches always talk about for decades, and I don't care, the greatest coaches ever, the neophyte coaches, they talk about putting their players in a position where they can do their best. Am I right with this? They talk about it, and they mean it. They live by it. I mean, guys, their careers rise and fall with it. At some point now, Kenny Atkinson, again, who by all accounts has been a fine coach for a while, he's going to have to deal with this, or else you lose the room. I've been in enough locker rooms. I know what happens. I'm not suggesting somebody should fire Kenny Atkinson. He had a bad game. Players have bad games. You don't get rid of people. But he's got to be accountable, and probably publicly, for this. Take the pressure off the room. Take the pressure off those guys now. You did not put them in position to win that game. As a matter of fact, you repeatedly failed to get them in position to just walk away with a game you'd already essentially won. So now what happens now? You got 48 hours, right?
Yeah.
To deal with this. And I talked to Hall of Famers last night who said, oh, no, they're done. They are done. There's no recovering from this for them. And you know what? Right now, I believe it. I mean, I had the Knicks winning this series in 5 anyway. 5, that was the 5th. That was it. That was the 5. And now what do you do, Jay? What does he do to get that room back?
Well, my thing is you have to be, we often at times in the media, we want players to be accountable, right? And I think the accountable thing for a head coach to do at that given time would have been to say, you know what, this is on me. Like, we had a 20-point lead. It's not on Donovan Mitchell. I don't want to hear anything about his ankle. It's not on Evan Mobley. It's not on James Harden getting targeted. That's on me to put all those players and to change up those lineups and to slow things down, considering we're back-to-back game 7s. Back-to-back Toronto, and then the next series against Detroit. You have a 20-plus point lead. On the road, you get a chance to steal one. There's nobody else to have accountability but the head coach.
Yeah, the Cavs have played 15 playoff games. They're 8-7.
Yeah.
Okay, they are at times very good. They have a lot of talent, but they're a flawed team. They turn the ball over. They have times where they lose their momentum offensively and defensively. James Harden can be targeted defensively. Obviously, he was in a tough spot there. He could also have done better, But this Cavs team is a flawed team, which means that you have to be even more on your toes as a coach. I don't like targeting head coaches. I don't like this. I'm not having fun today doing this.
Right.
But this is if the Cavs get up 1-0 in this series, they de facto become the number 1 seed. Okay? And they won in Detroit twice. They would have won in New York. Now, all of a sudden, you're up 1-0 in this series. And even whatever happens tomorrow night happens, you're in great position. And that slipped through their fingers. And that's what's, I'm from Cleveland. People are very, very, very down about this. And I'm having a hard time saying something that's going to make it feel better.
I'm from New York. People are really loving this because I've had people text me like, what a great game. I said, no, that wasn't a great game. That was a great finish, right, on the Knicks side of things. But it's also because, again, we saw this same thing happen last year. And what you know is the impact it can have after, the next day. And, of course, in game 2. Because suddenly now you know you gave one away. And you can't get that game back now. And so you're now chasing that game. And for Cleveland, as you mentioned, like they already know they're not the favorite in this thing. They're chasing now a game they gave away. You can't afford to do that if you're trying to win a series against a team like the Knicks.
I just want to say one more thing to you guys, because you said it earlier, and I think it was a really big point that was kind of glossed over. How many fouls did Jalen Brunson have?
5.
Get 5.
Why did Cleveland keep targeting Karl Anthony Towns?
I know, and they
pick and roll?
when they did finally get a basket, the James Harden basket with 30 seconds left, it was on Brunson.
It was on Brunson.
Again, we can't show the whole game in the highlight. We're not showing the Cavs' offense. The Cavs were just as much brain death on offense as they were on defense.
So the point is, there are 3 or 4 places where you can't understand what it is they were doing this late in the game. We just point out the game 7s. They won game 5 and 7 on the road. They won 5. They had to win game 5 as well. And so, but there's so many places where they failed, like miserably. That's why I say paralysis.
Yeah.
It was almost like they were just out of it.
But why can't you say they ran out of gas? I just feel like
they did.
they were so good for 3 quarters.
That's a fact.
That has to be a big factor,
You
right?
also won, Allen, not playing your best version of basketball if you're a Knicks. You reverted back to what the ISO basketball was
Well, that was
last year
Jalen
with
Brunson
Jalen Brunson.
saying, this offense is cute with Cat, but it's time for me to get some buckets
Alan,
right now.
here's the reason why. Because imagine your talk show this afternoon. Alan hosts the afternoon talk show on ESPN Radio in New York. If the circumstances were exactly reversed, if everything had been reversed and the Knicks didn't call a timeout and Mike Brown got up there and said,
Absolutely.
well, I was saving my timeouts for the end of the game, every single caller on your show today would have him fired before game 2 even
Greeny, I
tips
did this
off.
show last year.
You're exactly
Literally.
right. No way suggesting that's what happened.
And they fired the coach. They fired the
And
coach.
then they fired the
And
coach.
they ultimately fired the coach. All right, we have more to go on this one. Again, we will get to the West. We'll get to Wembanyama and stuff. But coming up, as I promised, Jay is going to show you exactly how Jalen Brunson was able to torch the beard over and over again last night. We are loaded up. And as we head to a quick timeout, guys, take a look at the New York Post. They are knickerbonkers here in New York.
Windhorse, as we look ahead to Spurs Thunder Game 2, Victor Wembanyama went off for 41 points and 24 rebounds in Game 1. And just yesterday morning, Michael Wilbon told us that that's one of the best performances he's ever seen in a game by Victor Wembanyama. Wendy, how can the Thunder defend Wemby or at least slow him down for Game 2?
You know, this is sort of an unpopular thing I'm going to say. I actually think that the Thunder, at least in the regulation, did an acceptable job on Wembanyama. I mean, they don't have a 7'5" guy. Their strategy was to use a mix of Chet Holmgren and their wings to sort of team up on him. In regulation, he went 9 of 19 for 27 points. I know that is a strong game, but that is survivable. Chet Holmgren actually did okay as a primary defender on him. The big issue was he had 9 offensive rebounds, and then he had 12 points in the last 6 minutes of the overtime session. But if you could tell the Thunder that they could get up 9 of 19 for 27 in the game tonight, I think they'd sign up for it. So other than maybe a little bit more Chet Holmgren, I don't think you're going to see the Thunder change their defense.
Yeah, it sounds like the Thunder did what they could against Wemby. Now, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, on the other hand, had a pedestrian game won by his standards with 24 points, 7 of 23 from the field. What stands out about how the two-time MVP defended or was defended in Game 1?
So this was really started by the Lakers and was doubled down on by the Spurs. They just threw so many bodies at him. And in these last 2 series, now these last 5 games, the sweep over the Lakers in this Game 1, Shai's numbers have just not been the same, and, I'm sure he would say that he's just missing some makeable shots, and I agree with that, but he has just got no space. They're forcing the ball out of his hands. And that is creating fewer opportunities, fewer chances to get to the line. And he's just going through maybe a minor slump. Now, he's 7 of 24 in Game 1. There were a number of plays where you look at and say, look, Shai is going to make that shot most of the time. And so I honestly think the Thunder will not make massive differences, but they're going to have to deal with the world where Shai is going to get basically 2.5 bodies. 2 guys on him with Victor Wembanyama coming over the top. That is not going to change, and that's not going to change even if the Thunder get through this series.
Yeah, a heck of a Game 1 for both of these teams. Excited to see what happens in Game 2. Let's transition to some big news that broke yesterday. Jason Kidd out as the Mavericks head coach. They advanced to the Western Conference Finals in 2022 and reached the NBA Finals in 2024. Lost Luka Doncic last season and went 26-56 this season. Now, this season was Dallas's first season with fewer than 30 wins since 2017-2018. and they went 24-58 that year. Kidd is also one of 3 head coaches in Mavs history to have a 500 or better record with the club while serving as the team's head coach for at least 5 seasons, along with Rick Carlisle and Don Nelson. The Mavericks will begin a comprehensive search for their next head coach. So, Wendy, what should they be looking for in their next leader?
Well, this is now one of the most attractive jobs in the whole NBA because you get an opportunity to come in on the ground floor of Cooper Flagg, and it's a vitally important hire for the Mavericks to make at this time because if you go look at why the Spurs are where they're at right now, it's because of the decisions that they made 2-3 years ago, not only with the players that they brought in, but also deciding on Mitch Johnson being Victor Wembanyama's coach. And so that's what's on the table here. Jason Kidd, and I think there were several other high-profile departures from the Mavericks organization yesterday. If you had anything to do with the Luka Doncic trade, fair or not, it looks like Masai Ujiri is going to move you out of the organization. He wants a complete fresh start, and that is going to conclude probably other things going forward, including on the roster. Yeah, a lot to look forward to with this Mavericks organization, especially what they're going to do and how they're going to develop Cooper Flagg. Brian Windhorst with the latest. Thanks so much, Wendy.